Hey, welcome to Lunch Break. I got a great friend here, Scott Winkler.
Good morning, good afternoon, I apologize.
Yeah, and I've got a friend here, brand new friend. His first name is Bill, and if I pronounce his last name, I have a lisp, and I will not be able to say another S after that.
Last name is Schlereth.
Schlereth.
Schlereth. You did good. You did very good.
Schlereth.
You did very good.
Oh, it felt good, too.
Okay.
Schlereth.
Let's just keep saying it.
Bill Schlereth is with us today from the district attorney's office. So I'm on my best behavior today with two attorneys sitting in front of me.
I'm on my best behavior.
Last time Scott was with us, he turned the whole interview on me, which was, I think, an attorney trick. You must learn in law school, right, Bill? I mean, I don't know where that comes from, but it was turned on me like it was beautiful.
I think it was being a kid and just learning how to manipulate my parents. I don't know if that was attorney skills I used.
Yeah, now I have to use what I learned in law school, which is the Fifth Amendment, which is the right not to say anything.
Yeah, invoke.
Especially married, got some kids, and we're talking about that. So we're glad you tuned in today. So as my friend and co-host Justin Greer would say, is grab that energy drink, grab a sandwich or whatever you would like to eat today. And I always say, why not eat some brown rice and sweet potato and some chicken? So have a healthy meal. But we're glad you're here. You can share us, like us. We're here today, and we're going to just have a conversation and go there.
We're going to have a good time. I can't wait. Bill, has it been at the DA's office for how many years?
I've been a prosecutor for 17. I've been a prosecutor in Kern County for 14.
Okay. Well, we'll get into that in a little bit. I can't wait. Get to know him. Let the crowd get to hear him.
Yes.
So let's start. Wasn't there a question from last week?
There is. So last week, our guest was Jason Broom.
Very powerful.
Yeah, it was really kind of a cool story, Bill, because Jason came from a really tough background, and he shared it with us. If you haven't seen the episode, watch it. But he had a really tough background. He sold drugs, used drugs, daily carried a gun, and he was an escort. And so as his life was going to try to turn around, he said that he had to basically leave the element. And he said he had to leave some family and friends kind of behind. And so our audience wanted to know, what are some practical steps out of getting out of bad circumstances? And I think I'm going to jump right in there because as my athletic career was 10 years in Los Angeles, I was a bodybuilder, and I knew that wasn't a healthy environment for me. So the first step for me was to leave L.A. I moved back. A lot of my friends asked me, why are you going back to Bakersfield? I go, because it's home. I have people there who care for me and love me. Yeah, so it's a support system. And I realized that I was in an industry that was a using industry. I was only good as I looked. And there again, I mean, it became very apparent. But when I was young and I was winning and it was easier without the injuries and some of those things, I realized that was, great. But then when I started getting injury and it took me a little longer to get in shape, the older I got, started to realize it was how I was placing that was the determination factor for me. And it was really hard to read critical things about me in the magazines. But as I left, it wasn't just I left because of that. I mean, the drugs are prevalent in bodybuilding. I mean, of course, we had anabolic steroids, we have growth hormone, we have insulin, we have a lot of the diuretics that you have to take, and so it just was wearing on me. And then the morality in the industry waned a lot too. And it's just something, when you're in Hollywood, you do as people do, and it just wasn't good for Tom. And so I realized I had to leave Los Angeles. When I came back to Bakersfield, I got in an environment where I did a job that I had an education in, and that was the MIS world. So I started contract programming, started getting in the business world, and I went ahead and worked for Sun World and had an opportunity to start new relationships. So leaving a lot of the old relationships behind was paramount for me. Do I have some good relationships from bodybuilding? I do. I've had a lot of people question me, Tom, if things were so bad, why didn't you try to stick around and help some of us out? And I was just like, man, it was like the drowning man trying to help another drowning person, right?
Right.
So as I came back to Bakersfield, I had to start to cut some relationships out of my life.
Yeah,
and that's what I did. Yes, in Bakersfield.
So you were living in L.A.
Yeah, and I had to cut those relationships. When I even came back to Bakersfield, I had to start limiting things, and one of the things I eliminated was my use of anabolic steroids, because that brought me into a bad element, even in Bakersfield, because we can find bad stuff anywhere you live, right?
Well, let me play devil's advocate for a moment.
You could be an attorney.
No, you said you knew what you were doing was wrong or was bad.
I tell people all the time, Tom knew Tom was screwed up.
Yeah.
I just knew that. I just didn't know how to get unscrewed up.
Okay.
That was my big thing.
Okay.
And really, as I started to put some things back in my life, one of the best things for me was Christianity. That helped me really get unscrewed up. But putting the baby steps in my life, changing friends, changing behaviors, and that was one of the things. As I started to slip back from some of the bad things I was doing, blood doping, insulin, the diuretics, that kind of thing, I was still hooked on anabolic steroids. So I just started doing less dosage, and I went to a cleaner drug. What do you think that's right sometimes? But that's it.
I think what you did, first of all, is extremely usual. I think it's common, but my question would be based on the question they asked. When you came back and you made the decision in your head, I need to make a separation. There's things that need to change. But you still were dabbling, for lack of a better word, with steroids. You're still crossing over every time you need them. How did you make the clean break, other than just stopping? You knew in your head, I have to break from this whole lifestyle, correct?
Yes.
So was there anything like intentional or that you remember I need to do A or B to completely break through?
Well, the leaving LA was a big deal because it was my profession, it was the industry, it was something that was easy for me, came easy to me. I did get an education, so I knew I needed to put that to work for me.
Right.
And then when I came in, I got a job and I got responsibilities. So that was the first step that I did.
Okay.
And I knew I couldn't. I still like to work out, so I was still in the gym.
Okay.
But I realized I had to stop being around a person that would drag me back in to the industry. And I'll never forget it. I was I shared this on an episode. I was considering going back into bodybuilding, and I was going in because there was a guy named Vince McMahon, WWF. He was starting the WBF, World Bodybuilding Federation. And they were interested in me before I came back to Bakersfield, so I had a few phone calls that were coming in. So a lot of the wrestlers were my friends. And I really toyed around with getting back in. I'll never forget the phone call because I was on Truxton Avenue, coming where they used to train the police dogs, as you came around there. And my brother called me and said my dad had a stroke.
Yeah, you mentioned that last week, or 2 weeks ago.
And when my dad had a stroke, he knew where I was going. He said, Tom, please don't go back into bodybuilding because we need you now as a family. And that was a switch that flipped. And I'm like, I came back for a reason, to be around my family. Something just traumatic happened to my dad, and I did. I committed to my family, which makes a lot more sense. And I was thinking clearer than I was when I was in. So I committed to my family.
I was in the gang unit for the district attorney's office for the better part of a decade. And I saw the situation that your guest is talking about a couple dozen times. The problem with gangs is there's so much that they build on that is instinctually good. There's community, there's loyalty, there's a sense of courage, there's a sense of belonging. The problem with gangs is that they warp them or drive all of those virtues into a very negative place, which is obviously crime. And that crime involves some of the same things your guest was talking about. Crime involving getting into drugs, getting into prostitution, and other crimes, violent crimes, which can cost people their life. Of the 1 or 2 dozen people that I talked to during my, again, almost a full decade in the gang unit, who left the gang life, you're absolutely right. The first step for all of them that were successful was physically, geographically removing yourself.
Wow.
And the second thing, and all of them that had succeeded or were, it's a constant struggle, were experiencing success. All of them had a second trigger, something personal in their life, just like that phone call from your brother.
Interesting.
So,
see, when I look at this, I look at it more, this is me, from a practical standpoint. Like when I look above, if I'm going to be real simple here. If I'm trying to lose weight, the worst thing I can do is put a bunch of junk in my cabinets or put bad food in the fridge because it's near me, it's around me. If you keep growing, if when I'm playing baseball and I'm doing sports in school, generally all my friends are athletes or teammates, or if I'm doing debate team or mock trial, whatever it may be, that just makes common sense. It's very difficult to break free of dope in this case if you keep going back to the exact same people to hang out with, because they're not making the same decision you are. And we all make that decision very personal. And I think it's not like you should. It's one of those you must. You have to break free, or it's not going to happen. It's never going to be successful. So, and I think both of your stories are right in line with one another.
You know, I like the Teen Challenge program, their approach. So Kern County Teen Challenge, if you come into the program, which is a very good way to get out of substance abuse or other things, they will keep you in Kern County for 3 months,
Correct.
but then move you out
Right.
to Riverside for the next
9 months. Yes.
Which it incorporates the same thoughts.
Correct. No, absolutely. I agree. And during those 3 months, they're in lockdown at that as well, during when they're here, just going through the early motions.
So Scott, you want to jump in on that one anyway, or any experience of turning away from something?
You know, honestly, my big experience, I would say, I have a real knack right now. Whatever we're doing, I think daily life, we bring whatever we're doing in, and whoever's also doing that comes in with it. So if I'm trying to pick up a sport like golfing, who's ever at the golf course when I am practicing, ultimately is going to become a friend of mine that I work with. On the exact same spot, if I'm hanging out with Bill every day and we're going to if we're going to Friendly Cafe, if they were still open every day and eating, and then going to work, that would be a breakup. I guess I look at this from a real practical standpoint. I may know in my head it's not easy, but I know it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter now of me making that commitment, which is the hard part, right?
Yeah.
The commitment to go. What about you, Mr. Schlereth?
Well, no, I mean, what you're doing is almost quoting the Bible. The spirit is willing and the flesh is weak.
Oh, I
Bingo.
love that,
Absolutely.
Bill.
Absolutely.
I love that.
I agree. The
And-
flesh will drop us.
Well, and that's part of being human.
Yes.
Some people's struggles are very small. Some people's struggles, like your last guest, are sort of existential, monumental struggles.
Right.
But I think we're all Christians here. I think what our duty is to our Creator here on earth is to take up those struggles and put everything we can in good faith to overcome them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good.
You know-
Absolutely.
You know what it is the Bible says that we're supposed to rid ourselves of the sin that so easily entangles us. And everybody's lured in by something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that might be the thing out there is go back to the Bible, biblical, like Bill just said, and just get rid of those sins that so easily entangle us
Absolutely.
or encumber us. So
And listen, we know it's difficult, but we have to first talk about it and make an
Yes.
approach before we attack it, correct?
Yeah,
That's really good.
But I think the effort is everything. You and I, we work in criminal law,
Correct.
and there's no crime in criminal law, none, unless there's intent.
Correct.
And if your intent every day, so I'm weaving in what
I love that.
the professional end of it too. If your intent every day is to make that good faith effort to improve yourself, like your last guest, to not deal drugs, to not carry a weapon, to
Break free of
honestly-
criminal
right,
behavior.
you are honestly trying every day. That is ultimately where I think, I don't want to put too strongly, where you get judged on. That's ultimately the meat and the coconut. That's what
Right.
matters.
I agree.
agree.
That's
I agree.
very good.
I agree.
Can
So
I
you-
can I introduce, I guess, formally our guest and
Yes,
talk about him?
Please. Well, we have a question that we usually ask.
Oh, I apologize.
Because that's your role today, Scott.
Yeah, you know what? I apologize to Justin because I'm not carrying through his role. And I Justin, if you're out there, I do apologize. So, Mr. Schlereth, let me ask you something. For those that know you, that work with you every day, I see you, and for those in the industry, Bill's recognized as one of the DAs. That's a fairly nice guy. He's as tough on his offers as everyone else, but he's fair. I don't know if that's a good word for district attorneys. They don't like being called fair, I don't think.
I'm going to take it and run with it.
Okay, I'll take it.
I don't want to stop you at all.
Well,
Scott.
earlier you mentioned you'd been a district attorney for 17 years. Before I go there, I keep getting off, and I apologize because I'm just so excited.
Part
to
of
go
my
after
job
Bill,
is to here
is
to keep
me
you
in
on
line.
track.
And see, like 2 weeks ago, you said I got the best of you. Well, you're working me pretty good now, Mr. Schlereth. What's something that you do daily, or something in your life that most of us that know you simply would be surprised by?
That I do daily?
No, not daily. Something that us that know you on a daily basis
May
would
not
be
know.
shocked by. Yeah. Well,
My wife and I have a joke that I am a man with no secrets.
Wow.
There's nothing about me that I think that people who've known me for, Tom,
Well,
how long have you known me?
no.
I don't think there's anything they know.
Well, having said that,
40 minutes.
let's take it a different angle then. With everyone that knows you,
Yeah.
what are the things that people usually look at you and say, oh, that's cool, or that's interesting, or wow, you do that?
I love the fact that you're a coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, they might be surprised that I'm a little league coach.
Yeah, I would.
I love that.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, but I'm shocked.
Yeah, that might surprise them. The fact that I'm a big baseball fan might surprise them because people who work with me and know me, I have 2 universes. I've got the family and 3 kids who are all under 10 years old. And I've got the office and the courts and the criminal law.
Those are 2 big universes to handle.
But there's not a third. There's not,
Crap.
one day, maybe 2 of an entire year. I'll go to my wife Esther and say, we've got a babysitter. Let's have a date night. That our whole universe is engaged in those 2 areas.
Well, that's an interesting point. How often does that happen? Let's go with a date night. How often do you guys get date nights with 3 under 10?
So far this year, we've had 1.
Okay. Wow, that's not good.
That's one more than me.
Really?
You
don't have young kids.
Well, no, people will always tell me, because I advocate for date nights. Actually, we're going to have a date night here at the Northwest Campus.
So does my wife, by the way.
and so my wife is, I love my wife, Tiffany, and we've been married now 27 years. And my wife, when we got married, just said, Tom, so you don't mistake what I'm saying. She goes, don't buy me flowers or cards anymore.
You didn't listen to her.
I did because she meant it. Because she goes, I know how much they cost, and I don't. So when it comes to date night, sometimes we'll plan it. We'll get ready, and if she's putting makeup on, she'll look at me, and it's not a trick question anymore because I know her. She goes, do you really want to go?
Oh my gosh, that's my wife and I.
And I know that she's like, okay. Now don't judge me out there, audience, because you know my wife, so you can ask Tiffany, and if you want to ask her, you can Facebook her. But my wife will go, let's just stay home. She really enjoys. She's a public school teacher, so she's around kids a lot and other people. So sometimes we just enjoy being together.
Your date's a night alone.
Yes, it is.
Oh, that's still good.
My wife is a prosecutor. I met her in the office 13 years ago. We've been married for 11 years, going on 12. And one thing a lot of people talk about is, do you watch those true crime stories? No. I mean, it's
you live them.
It's a hard break. We put our work aside, and at home, we're on Disney Plus all the time watching whatever.
Good channel though.
Yeah, yeah. But we're not watching the stuff that makes you think it's a good channel.
Right.
We're watching, the Snow White for the 20th time.
I'm gonna, real fast. You just made me think of one thing I have to ask. A lot of us look at married couples that are 2 attorneys. What is it like? I mean, listen, your wife as a district attorney is a bulldog. There's no doubt she is.
Yeah, I've told you this before, Scott. You have no idea what it's like being the second best attorney in your family.
I don't.
I mean, so are fights better? Are they more strategic? Are they more issue oriented?
No, every couple fights. Honey, if you're watching, I'm sorry for whatever I did wrong to cause the last one. The thing is always, she's an attorney. She's bright. She's very well educated. She's got a perfect score on her SAT, which I'm reminded.
That's impressive.
I'm reminded of daily. So I know I know
my wife's an educator, so
so I'm just saying it because I know my place. But the most important thing, and I think she would agree, is if you're fighting, and fights happen in every in every couple.
It's a conflict resolution.
Do it in good faith.
Yeah.
Don't say anything that is not in
Out of
good
line.
faith. Admit when you're wrong and get there fast.
Yes.
Identify your emotions and contextualize them so that you can get yourself whole, so you can help make your partner.
Are you saying fight clean, argue clean?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Oh,
Yeah. That's
the
basic.
Lord's Queensberry rules
Yes,
of
exactly.
fighting in a marriage.
Fight clean. Don't hit below the belt.
Right.
It's funny because a lot of the men around here know me, and so I always give them a little card that on one side it says listen, on the other side it says fixed. And I said, give that to your wife because you're very rarely going to get the fixed side. It's going to be the listen side. And they go, is there another side to this? Because we want to say how long.
Yeah.
So the listening is huge.
Yes.
Right.
In marriage.
And the fixing, my wife says this to me all the time. I don't need you to fix it. I need you to hear me.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, that's
good.
great. That's
That's a
great
good
news,
statement.
honey, because I don't know how to fix it.
And I haven't heard you for ages.
we think we do, sometimes.
Well, yeah,
But-
we just can't be such guys when we're listening to our wives.
I told the congregation I spoke of a couple months ago back on Wednesday night, and I told them that I've only got one fix ever from my wife. And when she said it, I was so excited to fix it. I mean, it was in my lap. She's like, Tom, I want you to fix this. I want you to fix it now. I'm like, okay. And I did. I worked on it. I mean, then by the next day at noon, it was done. But it was more of a relational thing than anything else.
But it also was the way she proposed. She didn't sit there and say, we have a problem. She's like, I want you to fix it.
She did.
And fix it now. That was very clean. It was very concise.
Yeah. And then my wife, she's a second grade teacher, and she'll break it down to me like that sometimes.
Well, my daughter just graduated from second grade, if there is such a thing.
Yes.
So your wife has all of my sympathy.
Well, my wife will break it down because when we go through a conversation, sometimes she'll want to ask me questions, and they come in phrased as a second grader. So I'll just sit there and
Yes,
and
dear.
I'll form yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's usually the acceptable answer. So
Well, that was good. Go ahead.
I love it. So
I'll let you delve into it now since I
Yeah,
prematurely asked questions.
no, I just love it because that's how our show goes. So Bill, give us a little bit about, did you have mentors in your life that directed you towards this profession? Did you have a philosophy in life that directed you? Did you always know you wanted to be an attorney?
No, I sort of went to law school out of sort of expectations that I didn't really examine. I was in my mid-20s, and it's like, well, this is the next thing to do. I didn't become an attorney right away. In fact, I didn't even sit for the bar until 5 years after I had graduated
Really?
from law school. I called up my law school and I said, what's the pass rate for people who haven't even taken
Oh,
the bar
it's
until
like
5?
10, 12, 20.
Well,
ridiculous.
no, it's worse than that. They said, if you haven't taken the bar at all 5 years after graduating, nobody's passed. And I said,
Really?
so my percentage is
Zero. Right now it's zero.
Well, now it's 100, guys. So, I wanted to become a prosecutor because the prosecutors are the only job that I know of at all, and the only job in the law where you have to do justice. And what that specifically means is you have to be totally committed to the truth. And this has happened. Scotty comes to me with a client of his, and it's like, it's not how it looks in the police report. This is how it is. This is how it is. My obligation, I'm thrilled to do it, is to do the right thing. And I do this as a professional, and I get to pay a mortgage for that. Fantastic. But the fact that I am devoted with every breath I take at work to the truth has meant the world to me. I didn't come into to have a mentor until I was a prosecutor for 6 years. And my mentor, you all know who she is, and that is Cindy Zimmer. And I am incredibly devoted to her. She is a fine attorney. She is a wonderful friend. I think she's the best district attorney we've ever had.
I'd probably agree. I'd agree with that.
And we've had very good district attorneys.
I agree with that.
But she taught me how to be a gang prosecutor.
I like that. So Scott, have you ever went up against?
You know what? I will to be in complete disclosure. There was probably, how many years were you out there?
2 and change.
So Bill was actually stationed, I guess, in the Shafter Courthouse, where my primary office
I
was
remember
the
where that
whole
office
time.
was.
And yeah, Bill and I worked with each other virtually at least 4 days a week, every week for a couple of years. Yeah, there were many times I came to him where I don't think we ever did a trial together. We did several preliminary hearings together, and there were numerous times what he just explained exactly happened. Believe it or not, there are times people get arrested where there is a mistake. There's an unknown error that later comes up after the case was filed.
Or more to the story.
Or just more to the story. He's right. And they will come hire a defense attorney to provide that other part of the story. And yeah, my experience with Bill is he would always at least take the time to look into my story. Some occasions he'd look and say no, and other occasions he'd say, okay, you're right, we'll go ahead and dismiss it. I guess he always gave me a fair read. We have a professional relationship, but it's always been really good.
So that leads me to my next question. How'd you two become friends?
Working together, I guess.
Working together certainly put us in each other's paths, but the fact that we're both USC football fans just cemented.
Yeah, that really put us at lunch together quite a bit out in Shafter.
Yeah.
We never talked work, to be honest with you. It was always USC football or the recruiting class or who they're going to go after.
Yeah, that's something not a lot of people who don't know college football don't understand. There are like 5 seasons. There's the recruiting season, there's the spring season.
That's right.
There's the bowl season, there's the regular season. So there's always something.
So we talked a lot about football primarily.
Yeah, I remember you and I had a mutual friend, Eddie Chavez.
Yes, went to USC. I told him this.
Yeah,
story.
Eddie Chavez went to USC, and I used to help Eddie in the gym, and
It is interesting you mentioned that. When we got together, the way he mentioned USC football, and I said, I had a friend there, and my brush with greatness is he lived with Junior Seau.
Junior Seau
And I remember
was his roommate.
That was the gentleman I'm speaking of.
I remember.
And I told, of course, that was one of my first stories to him. Then I said I saw him like 20 years later, and he completely shined me at the restaurant, didn't recognize me. Made my kids give me a
you
bad
had to drop.
time.
Oh, I'm a friend of Eddie Chavez.
No, not. Come on, Eddie, give me a break. I told my friends for years how I was a friend of Junior Seau. We went to his restaurant in San Diego. He was actually there. I went up to him and I go, Junior, can you believe this? Went up, put my arms up for a hug. He literally looked at me like I'm nuts, like, hello. And I'm like, Eddie Chavez. I had to go through the whole number, and my kids have never let me live that down. Because I talked about how well I knew him for years prior to
Just
that
being around
unfortunate
Eddie.
meeting.
Well, and I want to be completely transparent on this. I'm a huge USC football fan. My parents taught at USC Medical School.
Oh, wow.
I've got
Pretty cool.
I've got siblings who went there, but I'm the black sheep of the family.
You're the only attorney.
And there's worse black sheep than that. My wife went to UCLA, and before her, I went to UCLA.
Oh, that's correct.
So I want your audience to know that there's a home for everyone here. We're big time inclusive.
That is absolutely
I
great.
love that
Yes.
story.
Isn't that good?
Yeah. So, what else? As you and your wife met and you had children, how did having those children change your life? Now, I understand you're a little league coach, but does your daughter play on your little league team?
Oh yeah, my daughter and my son they're
On the same team.
Irish twins.
Oh.
So
Oh, wow.
they sit on the. My wife's Korean, so of course she would have Irish twins. They're on the same team together, and Charlie's always been the littlest kid in his class, and Lizzie has a real knack for pitching, and it's been wonderful to see them compete, develop, fail with the understanding that nothing in life worth doing doesn't involve risk.
Oh,
and risk
agreed.
means failing.
Right.
And what you do after you fail is pick yourself up again.
Good for you.
Because nothing worth achieving doesn't have a risk to it.
Right.
Absolutely. That's good. Now, you have the third child, you said.
Yes.
How old?
Billy. I just said his name. He's my name too. He's 4.
Okay. So you haven't got into the being at 2 different diamonds or...
Oh, it's coming.
It's coming.
Oh, it
It's
is.
coming.
Like
That's
a
rough.
freight
I had to do
train.
that.
Oh.
You're going to get there soon, I'm sure.
Scott, let me do this because you keep moving
Yeah,
the
I'm
microphone.
pretty good at
this
beating
is
up
this is almost
cable.
in Bill's face now.
Yeah, and I'm going to be one of the parents who, when my coaching career is over, and we're a 500 club, so I feel the heat from management already. We're going to invest in the big tent. And
Yeah.
We'll just plop ourselves and we'll just
And just
be
back
here.
off a little bit and
Yeah.
yell at the coach for doing a bad job in the future.
I wouldn't want anybody yelling at me, so I won't
Yeah.
yell at any of them. But I was sharing with Scott a story about my daughter, because when people think Little League, quite naturally they think boys. But
Yes.
my daughter is out there, and again, she's the second best pitcher on our team. If any of the parents are listening, right after your child, then Lizzie.
Spoken well.
And she's kind of been our relief pitcher, so she comes in and puts out the fire. And she put in real leverage positions, what they say in the sport.
Right.
And she came in a couple weeks ago, and the bases were loaded.
Oh.
We were in the middle of no outs. We're in
And
the middle-
Dad put her in that position.
Oh yeah, and we're in the middle of blowing an 8-run lead, and she comes in, and the first kid she faces walks and scores a run.
What's the
And-
score at that point?
Well, that's at that point it's 8-5.
8-5.
And as the boy is running to first base, he turns to my daughter and says, "That's why girls shouldn't play baseball." That inning lasted 9 more pitches. She was on it. Strike, 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 done. Strike, strike,
So
strike,
what was
done.
that? What do you think? 7 innings? 6 innings?
They usually go 5. You can go as many as 7.
So 5th
but
inning, she closed them, got her
she
first
closed it.
save.
No, her third save.
Third
oh, No,
save,
yeah,
wow.
She just
And
didn't-
now you know she's got a fire in her.
Oh, and now I know she's got a fire in her. I'm scared to death of what that might mean.
For everybody.
But I couldn't be prouder of her.
That's awesome, man.
You know, Bill, you had shared something with what your next achievement might be. Want to explain to our audience what you're getting ready to do?
Sure. I am haven't made the formal announcement yet, but I'm
Well,
going.
maybe it's the breaking news on lunch break.
But I'm going to be running for a Superior Court judge.
Oh, I love that.
There is at least, as of now, one other attorney in my office who is also running. I'm not going to be running against anybody in my office.
Mhm.
That certainly is my intent not to do that. In fact, the one I know who's running, I avidly support because he's his name's Mike Caves. I'll
Michael
just throw
K.
that.
Very good man. Very good man.
Very good attorney. Very
Yes,
good man.
I do. I agree.
But there's going to be more than one seat open, and I'm looking at one of the seats. And I can explain why.
I love it.
Go for it.
Please.
This is good.
The show's always about you. I love meeting you. I mean,
Thank you for that. I've been a prosecutor, as I said, for 17 years, 14 serving this community. And in that time, I've done just over 70 jury trials. I've done 14 murder jury trials, and with some success. I think the community that I serve now, that I'm looking to serve as a Superior Court judge, needs to have the opportunity for people with my experience, and I'm not the only one, I don't mean to say I am, needs to have the opportunity to consider them for the position of a judge. I'm not going to be 6 feet taller. I'm not going to, it doesn't mean anything to have people call me Your Honor. This is a place where I can carry my career into a place of greater and sort of more expansive service, and it's an opportunity for the community to take advantage of my professional experience. There are others with professional experience again, but I certainly have it. And the judges that I've spoke to who have given me their endorsements, and that'll all come out when we have the formal announcement around the middle of the summer.
don't say anything.
We'll keep it quiet. We'll keep it very quiet.
They're enthusiastic about it because, Scott and I talked about this. What are the two most important things in a judge? You need to have command. You need to have command over the law. You need to have command over your courtroom. You need to have command so that you can ensure that ultimately the jury does justice. The second thing you need to have is a good temperament. You need to have an environment where the jury's comfortable. You need to have an environment where the attorneys can do what they need to do professionally. And the feedback I've been getting from judges, I don't want to name anybody at this point, is that those are two areas where I'm particularly strong. At any given moment, up to 80% of all judges in our county carry a criminal caseload.
Mm-hmm.
I've been carrying a criminal caseload for the last 17 years of my professional life,
Right.
so I'm ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if the community hears me out, takes a look at what I've done and who I am, I think they'll come out and vote for me, and because they'll come to the conclusion that we believe that about you too.
I think it'd be sensational.
Well, I might know the answer, but for those out there that say, listen, aren't our courts filled with judges that are all from the district attorney's office? Or do we really need another district attorney that falls right into being a Superior Court judge because there could be bias? What would be your response there?
My response is that there are two ways that you get onto the bench. One way is you put in
Jenny.
through Jenny,
Mhm.
which is the governor's office, and you go and apply through the governor and say, well, if there's an opening, please appoint me as a judge. Other than that, you go and run. So there are two ways. They're either elections or the governor's office. The governors, Governor Brown and now Governor Newsom, are not falling all over themselves to appoint prosecutors or former prosecutors.
Mhm.
They have, but they're not really interested in that. They are firm believers in diversity, and they want to see greater diversity on
Right.
the bench. And that diversity includes diversity of what type of law you practice.
Okay. Well, I
and-
think that's true if you look at the most recent appointees.
Right. And
locally.
some of them were prosecutors.
They worked. There was a few that were prosecutors.
Right.
So I don't even know what the number is. Do you think there's an inherent bias when you go from the DA's office to the bench, and now you're out here to support the community, make sound, right, honest decisions? Do you think there's an inherent bias? You've been, well, I'll let you talk, but the inherent bias because you've been there 20 years, 18 years, right?
Yeah. Not if the judge is self-possessed and knows who they are,
Right.
where they come from, and what their job is in front of them.
Good.
So I guess the answer is it shouldn't be.
Okay.
We're human beings. This gets us right back to the beginning. You
Yes.
try every day,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean you'll always get there. Any judge should keep in mind the responsibility to promote truth and fairness. That means the rights of the accused in a criminal context are every bit as important as the ability for the jury to hear as much of the evidence as possible to make a decision.
Good.
I love it. I have one question, and I'd like you to maybe talk about any philosophy or motto that you have What did you do for the 5 years before you took the bar?
I was,
Good question.
for a large part of that, yeah, I thought you guys were going to ask me about something interesting about myself. And the way you posed the question,
Well, then you
Scott-
could have made it up different.
Oh, no, that's a fair point. I know it's my fault. No, I got it. I thought you meant something in the past. You wanted to know something about right now. In those 5 years, for a large part of them, I was, believe it or not, a reporter for a CBS affiliate in
Really?
Idaho.
I don't think you ever shared that with
In
me.
Idaho.
Yeah.
Interesting.
How-
Well, I went to graduate school at Syracuse, and I got a master's degree in journalism. And then you put together, you do your news stories for the year you're there, and then you send them out all over the country. And the
The one
place
that
that
Idaho.
and the place where I got my first offer was Idaho. And then a lot of other places started rolling in, but it was like, I'm in my mid-20s, I gotta
gotta
get
make-
into it. So I said yes to the first one, and I turned down places in Montana, places in
So
Tennessee
you were a
and so forth.
media guy.
I was a media guy.
Wow, that's very interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's why the lights and the microphone.
Yep.
They fit you well.
And
It
he,
looks really
he
good.
and you both are very charismatic on that. Bill, is
Well, he's
there-
got a face for radio. I mean, he's a good-looking guy. Got a face for radio.
you both have radio voices. So in our,
Scott, those are cameras.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't the face.
Plan B now.
Yeah.
Plan B.
so is there any motto that you want to leave, or philosophy you'd like to leave our audience with, or anything?
Yeah, it was something that, again, Cindy Zimmer, who is my boss and it's my mentor, she would say to me a lot when I was with her in the gang unit. She was the supervisor of the gang unit. And she said, we have to do the right thing the right way for the right reason.
I love that.
That is very simple, easy to remember.
Well, I mean, technically I stole it from Cindy Zimmer.
Well,
so
we'll give her credit, but it was still easy to remember.
But it's simple, I mean, it's something that people can apply, because why shouldn't you do that?
Right. Well, and again, you're always struggling toward that, and you will at times come up short, fail, falter. It's how you respond to the shortcomings by picking yourself up and keep going toward that tell you who you are to your friends, to your loved ones, to your God, and so forth.
That is good. I bet you're a good dad. That's just good stuff.
It is.
I'm only a prosecutor or a dad. There's nothing else I
That's
am.
very good. I'm impressed. Very impressed.
So, anything you want to leave our audience with outside of that, or anything that you wanted to say that we didn't give you a chance to say?
Nothing comes to mind as far as what I didn't get a chance to say, but urge them to, the election where I will be running is in June of 2022. So it's just about a year away. And I'd ask them to do the most important thing anybody can do. Be a good citizen, find out
Yes.
as much as you can, and make the best choice you can. And I hope
An informed choice. Good for you.
I hope the
Yes, sir.
choice is me.
I love it.
Good for you, Bill.
Well, Bill, I've enjoyed getting just to know you, and love to have you guys both back.
That's I love
especially
it.
especially
Anytime.
even before the election. So,
Sure.
well, gang, you can email us me any questions, Pastor Tom at vbf.org. Scott, if you want to get a hold of you,
It's
if they haven't,
chapterlaw@gmail.com.
and that can be if you haven't committed a crime. So
Yes, just to talk,
just
be
to
a friend.
talk,
I'll be here. I'll be
And
happy
Bill,
to talk to you.
would you mind? Is there an email address if somebody has a question?
Probably.
We are still putting together the Facebook
Okay.
and all that. It's coming.
So keep posted, and outside of that, have a great day. And
Thank you, Bill Schlereth.
Bill, oh my
very
gosh,
much.
Bill
Very
Schlereth.
good.
There again,
Yes,
Scott.
thank you,
Always
bud.
a pleasure.
Scotty.
Take care.
bud.
See you next week.
Take care, guys.